Okay, before we get into that, on the terminations. So, you know, we went through a season in this real estate market where there just were almost no terminations. I mean, the buyer had no control, the seller had all the leverage. And it was a wonderful thing whenever a buyer was just in position with the house and they wouldn't let it go for nothing. And so unless they just couldn't buy the house, ultimately, there were very, very few terminations through a season in our marketplace. Are we having a really unusual amount of terminations, or are we just kind of back to normal amount of terminations?
Normal for what all things.
It feels kind of like normal? What do y'all think? I mean, look, it's not a trick, you know, I don't trick question you because I want you to interact with me. And if I trick questioned you, then you would not interact with me. But I mean, is it like a really abnormal amount, or are we going from an abnormally low amount to a more normal amount?
I think it feels more abnormal because the sellers are still stuck in a mentality where they can get more for their house than they actually can. I think that's what makes it feel abnormal, because we feel like we're fighting with them so much.
There is definitely, when the market changes, the consumer's mind takes a while to catch up with the reality of a market in whichever direction it's moving. And so my encouragement to you is, and I know I love, so I said this to Nikki, I think this morning or yesterday, and she didn't like it. But so Brett Tanner said, he's the guy that runs KW Wealth and started and runs KW Wealth. He has a saying all the time, he says all the time, he says, is that the truth or is that your truth? And so I knew when I said that to Nikki, I was laughing, just so you know, I was joking when I said that to Nikki, just so everybody's.
What's Nikki like?
She responded to me as if I was not kidding about it, but it was in jest, but maybe it was for real. So, but the thing is that's the question you always have to ask yourself is, if you get into a situation where you begin to gross generalize everything's falling apart, no one is buying, everyone is this, all of them are that. When you get into a situation where you begin to do gross generalizations, just take that step back. And is that my truth or is that the truth? And what is the reality of that? And how can you think about it differently so that you can approach it differently? There's like a whole chapter in Shift, which is bulletproof the transaction. And I think we need to get back to bulletproof the transaction. And I'm not saying that things are falling apart because y'all aren't doing what you're supposed to do. Just like many, many things, we stopped doing some of the things that we were doing because we didn't have to anymore. And now that we get back to a higher and perhaps more normal cancellation rate, we need to get better skills around bulletproofing the transaction, setting up proper expectations, making sure we're getting ahead of certain challenges, making sure that the buyer actually saw the property before you suggest to your seller they take that offer instead of the other. Just all of those kinds of things that maybe we got a little away from and we need to brush up on. Okay.
Obviously, recency bias puts this in a more drastic comparison. So because we had such a long time of not having the termination and we're seeing more terminations, and I think that it goes back to a skill conversation.
Yeah.
There are certain things that are, we had a survey come back wrong. We have people losing jobs. Like there are just absolute no way around it.
Yes.
And are we having the conversations upfront, setting expectations, and are we able to have the difficult, challenging conversations throughout the transaction to keep people locked in and motivated?
Yeah. When I agree with you 100%. And so when we used to do business planning and we would look at, okay, my goal is this much income, and I'm going to get off this really soon because I got stuff that I need to cover with you, but I think it was just relevant because I've heard from people that I talk to about the cancellation right now. So this is not something that's unique to you. So I'm validating to you that there is an increase in terminations. And I'm trying to help you with a way to think about it that helps you to succeed rather than put you into a funk and cause you to go backwards. But we used to do business planning where we said, okay, you go on this many appointments and you get this many agreements. you need this many listings to get this many listing closings. You need this many buyer contracts to get this many buyer closings. And we went through this season where we're like, well, with listings, that's one listing to one closing. Because normally it's about a 70%. We generally will use a rough number of 70%, which is a 30% fallout rate. And so, I think we're back to that 30% fallout rate, and we need to go back to planning appropriately for the fallout, so we know how many deals we need to put in the top of the funnel, so we have the number coming out of the bottom of the funnel that we need to meet our income and business goals. So we're just back to needing to plan for that fallout in our business planning, then follow that straight on to your activities planning. And then I think we could shore that up with brushing up on bulletproofing the transaction. And it's also when you're anticipating a certain fallout, it makes the fallout impact you emotionally less. It doesn't mean you get jaded to it. It doesn't mean that you don't show up to that client that had something fall out with compassion and answers. It just means that as you, the agent, you have to bring calm and clarity to the conversation. That is one of the big things you get paid to do in a transaction. And so if you are feeling beat down by a high fallout ratio, if you are feeling distraught about the condition of the market, if you take a stat and you take it out of context and you create a story around it, then you're not showing up the way that you should to your client. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that I've pissed you off and depressed you before I get into well, moving to the topic of the day okay, so whenever we say wealth building, what do you think about? What are the thoughts that go in your mind when you see this wealth building, or you got an invitation to a team meeting that is about wealth building?
Retirement, 401k,
Passive income.
passive income.
Investment, retirement, 401k,
1031 exchange.
again,
1031 exchange.
1031 exchange. Investing. Okay, what else? Investing. What, else? Stocks, heard that, what? Yep. Gold, silver, a lot of investments.
Income.
A lot of investment, income,
Legacy.
legacy, thank you, yes.
Wish I had held on to Bitcoin.
Woulda, shoulda, couldas. Yeah, so yes, so there, you think about wealth building and generally you think about investments. And that's the predominant conversation that happens whenever you begin talking about wealth building. When I think about wealth building, I think about freedom. And when I look at freedom, like I want to live big. Nikki and I have big goals together for our family, for our future. I want to live big. I want to give big. I want to be generous. I want to leave a legacy. We talk so often about leaving a legacy to our kids and to those who are important to us, of financial education and of freedom and of generosity. And so, like when we think wealth building, now there's a whole thing that goes along with that, where there's a plan to get to that end of freedom. But let's talk about the reality just a minute. And let me, I'm gonna have some charts, some statistics and charts and graphs. So this is the reality today, is 38% of baby boomers say that they'll never retire. 38% say they'll never retire. 59% Gen X behind on retirement goals. 70% of millennials that have less than 50,000 saved. And only 12% of people say that they believe that they're confident that they'll have enough in retirement. Those are pretty rough numbers on this conversation of wealth building and freedom. I'll give you some more. 1 in 4 people have zero saved. The median 401k of someone 65 years or older is $87,000. And 40% of all retirees are living solely off of Social Security. Which
What percent?
40% of retirees rely solely on Social Security. The average net worth of 60 plus is $240,000, and that includes their primary residence. Which their primary residence is not an income producing asset. It may, if you have equity in it, it may reduce your expenses monthly, but it's not an income producing asset, so it's not gonna create the income that you need to retire. And so those are just some realities. Here's one of the things that I believe, it's my belief. This is my truth. I don't know if this is the truth, but this is my truth. Be honest with you on that, that we do a great job of teaching you how to make money in this business. We do a great job of teaching you how to make money, but a lot, I had a conversation with somebody the other day about this, and they said, sometimes I think that agents that we're teaching to make money are like professional athletes, where they make a lot of money, but we're not teaching them or equipping them how to then and what to do with it and give a good solid financial education around it. And so then once they stop making money, then they're in financial ruin. And so I see that so often in agents is that, you know, how, like we teach you how to make money. We spend all this time teaching you how to make money, but we have not done a great job of teaching you how to manage it and build it and protect it and to create freedom with the income that we're helping you to make. I know I see so often also, and this has been a reality in the last season. We went through a unicorn season of transactions in this business between 2020 and the end of 2022. And I saw agents who had a great month, a great season, a great year, and then just slammed their standard of living right up to the top of their highest month. And then they're 1 or 2 months away from being in desperation and survival mode and making poor decisions because they don't have margin. And then they run 10 times harder, burn themselves out, and eventually become a statistic and say, this real estate thing isn't for me. I don't want to ever do this anymore. I'm going to go get some other job. And so it just, and I think it's largely in part because we don't do a great job of teaching you the concepts of wealth building and good financial education. And there's really not a great, like, you know, I didn't get that growing up. I don't know how many of you, like someone sat you down and said, hey, I'm gonna mentor you and teach you about financial education. You know, if you did, you're one of the few, and you should count yourself very, very fortunate that whoever that was in your life, because it's super rare. This is Gary Keller's Path of Money. It's amazing. It is such, in Gary Keller form, it is so simple and so powerful. There are two types of assets. There's human capital and capital assets. So two kinds of capital. Human capital, this is you working, and this is your money working for you. So those are the two types of capital. Then those create cash flow. When you have cash flow, you do one of four things. You either spend it, you donate it, you hold it, you invest it. And then when your investment creates a return, or when you invest it, then you come down here to the two different things you can do when you invest it. You can either lend or own. And on both of those, you can either passively lend or own, or you can actively lend or own. Passively lending is like T-bonds or some kind of government thing like that, somewhere where you're loaning to someone, but it's out of your hands. Passively owning is stocks or ETFs or a syndication or something like that. Passive, you don't actively do it. Actively lending is you're doing some kind of private money lending. Actively owning is you've got rental properties or something like that. So all of this is designed to create financial return so that then you create more capital assets. So then you create more cash flow, and then you can do one of four things. And then when you invest it, you're going to choose one of these avenues and one of these. So you get is this whole wonderful, beautiful path of money. Here's what we do. We spend all of our time in what can you do? How can you use human capital, either your work or, hey, you know, it's listings and then leads, listings, and then leverage. So then leverage, again, human capital to create cash flow and then spend it. And then make more. And then, you know, your time, your human capital, cash flow, and then spend it. So we spend all of this time right here, like 99% of the conversations in real estate, in the industry, and Keller Williams has to do in this area right here. And we spend almost no time in all of this. And I think it's a total travesty and that we do that. We're gonna change that. And oh yeah, right here. So this creates the only 12% of people are confident. Dara knows this, Nikki knows this, some people that are close to me know this. I've been in Keller Williams for 16 years. Real estate for 29 years, Keller Williams for 16. I love this company. I mean, I bleed black and red. I mean, it is awesome. The culture, it's the best platform on the planet to build a real estate business. And it's just, it's unmatched anywhere. I spent the first 15 years in Keller Williams, passionate about production, teaching, consulting, doing production, and having conversations around you and with you, and implementing things that create an environment where you have a productive environment to create more money in real estate and building businesses. That changed a year ago. And I am now passionate about changing to this conversation. And I plan on spending the next 15 years in this company and around you teaching and training financial literacy, wealth building, financial strategies, financial security, and helping you to pursue freedom with the money that you make. And so we're gonna have these conversations, we're gonna build on it. There's gonna be opportunities for you to plug into it because I am passionate about you having access to these conversations here because most everyone wants to talk about this right here. And this is where your freedom comes, not up here. So you might be thinking, you know, this conversation is not for me. Look, there are a lot of people who, whether some people are on a great path and you have financial security and you're like, man, you know, I've been there, I've learned and I know those things. And if that is you, I beg you to get involved in the conversation and lending a hand back to the people in this community who need more of what you've been taught and what you've experienced. Other people, maybe you're in the middle of it. Maybe you're not even started. You're like, this is so beyond me and I'm so past the point. You're not past the point of being able to create financial.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. And the reality is because this is not such an easily accessible conversation, it doesn't come find you. This whole conversation lives, if you know the 4 quadrants, the whole conversation lives in important but not urgent. And you know the things that live in important but not urgent are very important, but they're not urgent until when? They're really urgent. And that is why we have to spend time prying ourselves out of the urgent and important and urgent and not important and prying ourselves and putting ourselves into the important, not urgent box. Because you need to take care of these things before they get urgent. But most of us learn these things late. You know, look, this is a conversation that Nikki and I both grew up in like lower middle class, me below that. And single mom, I had a single mom working 3 jobs, deadbeat dad, all those kinds of things. Like I went to work super early. There was no financial education. It was like, my mom taught me how to work hard. And I'm eternally grateful for her giving me good ethics and morals and a good work ethic. But she didn't know how to manage money. Nikki's mom and dad, amazing, amazing people. Dad is, many of you may know her dad, just an awesome guy. But he knew how to work really hard and he didn't have a great financial education to pass on to us. So we made money and then we spent it. And then we got it like, hey, make money, and then now we're not making money, and we slammed our spending up to our lifestyle, and now we're on credit cards, and now we make more money as we pay off the credit cards. I mean, that whole thing. And then there was a point in time, and we were just talking about this. We remember the moment, or at least the season, and where we were, the house we were in, the season of life we were in, where we made a conscious decision to fight for savings in our life and margin in our lifestyle. And so at that point, we're like, we're giving 10%, and now we're going to save 10%. And then we're going to pay our taxes. Real estate agents. And then we're gonna live off of what was left from that. And we made a conscious decision to do that. And it was a marking moment in our financial household. Then several years later, we had some savings. Now look, we had really inefficient savings vehicles. It was terrible. I would do so many things different today based on what I know now. but we made that decision. And so often, it's not the knowledge that gets you where you want to be, it's the habits that get you where you want to be. And so you can be incredibly knowledgeable about this, but if you're not putting the habits in place, then it's not gonna happen. But if you have the habit and now you have some knowledge around it, you can do it even better. And so we did this and we had, we had some savings and we were actually beginning to invest, 2006. Then 2007 came and 8, and we went through a great recession and we came this close to losing everything. And we went from having some savings and having margin to having no margin, having no savings, and leveraging every dollar of debt that we could get our hands on. I was getting credit cards in Nikki's name of $800 because that's what I could get on like a Macy's credit card that I could write a cash check and then turn around and pay a bill with it. Okay, so awful, terrible situation. But, then things changed again and we started making money again. And so it just, and then we came into this conversation. We started building and doing some financial things, but about 1.5 years ago is when I found a group of people that totally changed the way that we think about money, about financial freedom, about, and have financial education, and then a community of people to help get there. So I'm gonna share a few things with you. Let's get tactical for a minute. This is a triangle that has really important concepts of your financial household. This is from David Zabata with Factum Financial, amazing guy. And I asked him if I could use this. I've been through some of their training and he's a guy that helped us with some whole life insurance. Amazing guy. He's on our financial team. And I asked him if I could use his slide because I love it so much. Most of the time, when people think wealth building, they're right here at the top. When I asked you about wealth building, it wasn't a trick question. It's like most of the conversations were all about investing in cash flow and different types of assets and things like that. Even I said freedom was what I think about when I think about. And so most of us land right there at the top in the sexy parts of wealth building. But this right here, this is the foundation of wealth building, not sexy at all. It's not fun, it's not interesting, it's not sexy, but it's required. Because if you start here, then you don't have this, then it's unstable. You're in danger of being in financial ruin. This is the foundation you have to start with. And so, so this is the foundation, this is wealth acceleration, but you don't get to really employing the strategies around wealth acceleration until you first have done wealth foundation. So let's get to the bottom rung there. Here's where we start. And again, this is like, we're gonna start at the beginning with this conversation, and I'm sorry if you expected to come here and hear a super sexy conversation about wealth building and what the best next investment that's gonna get you 25% return and how you're gonna make a whole bunch of money with no risk and no noise and little money invested. Like, that's just not gonna be the conversation today. It's gonna be.
When is that conversation?
That conversation. That's later. That conversation happens on Facebook.
We saw that.
To get you to buy a box of crap. Where they're trying to make you look like they're successful, when in reality, they are in financial ruin. But they're wanting you to think that they're successful so that you buy their stuff and follow them. And by you following them, you make them some money, but not financially successful, and they don't teach you anything. In fact, this wasn't part of it, but we have, no, I'm not gonna say it. Financial education, yes, bro. So how do you get financial education? Well, again, it's like, this is the path of money. Gary Keller, he teaches this on several of the things that he does. I encourage you to get into one of his quantum leaps or something that he's teaching. I love it when he describes this path of money. It's amazing. The other thing on financial education is KW Wealth. And this conversation a year and a half ago, a little more than a year and a half ago, for me, KW Wealth was a big part of that. Because it's like-minded people. KW Wealth has an entire library full of financial education and resources. And there's a community of people going after it together, and people who are further down the road that you can say, hey, can you help me with that? And there are people that are behind you where you're saying, hey, I can help you with that. And that's a beautiful thing. So KW Wealth is a great place to get some financial education. In fact, this is kind of their flow of the mindset of the family office. And they go into each one of these areas of the family office with tons of curriculum and resources. And then you can get involved in conversations and groups within KW Wealth. They have a membership where you can just be part of the library. And then they have a membership where you can be part of the mastermind. Both of them have community. The mastermind is more expensive. You have to weigh out the cost of that. But you go to 3 times per year to a group where you're being taught. You have professionals come in. You're in the room with other people chasing the same thing. If you choose to be involved in that community, then you can learn a lot from the people in there. Bob.
Okay, I just wanted to remind people, because we have a financial group and we've been doing some good work, and I think people have found some value in it. What I want you to not do is be overwhelmed by this. It's a step-by-step process. Don't look at this as the big picture. Look at it as, where do I start? And get started. Because we are in an industry where there is no 401k, there is no retirement plan unless you make it. So this is such a good conversation. I've seen lots of real estate agents on payment plans to the IRS.
I have too. And look, I have to approve a lot of the commission advances. So I know what that looks like. And so, and it is a very, very, very important conversation, and don't be overwhelmed. I appreciate you saying that, Bob. One of the things that you can and should do is we love doing plans and business plans and 135s, GPSs. Create a wealth building GPS and make sure that you're starting on the foundation and what are the ways that I'm going to get a financial education. This is Brett Tanner's book list. I love it. I've read most of the books on his book list. Fantastic. And so you could just make a plan. Like I'm going to purpose to read X number of books per month. Or, Bob and I were just talking about Audible, and it's a great way to consume good, solid information while you're already doing something else, which is driving. Just make sure that you're primarily paying attention to driving. And then if you miss something on Audible, you have like the backup 15, 30-second thing, and you actually consume the information. You don't just check it off because you read it. But this is a great book list for financial education. In 2022, I was wanting financial education, and KW Wealth I didn't know about, or it wasn't quite around yet. And I went to a whole nother organization and spent a year with them. And the whole conversation in the whole year was the foundation stuff. It was the foundation stuff. We went through that. It was awesome. So purpose to read a number of books per month or per year. Look, I made this up last night. This little logo for it.
I
Like that? You like that? I'm
Is that
not
our new
married to
logo?
it. I'm not married to it, so like,
No,
if you wanna do
no,
something different,
no, I
totally
like
fine. But look, here's the thing, here locally, right here in this room, we have however many people in this room. None of you are sitting here like, screw this wealth stuff. Like, I hope you aren't. That's not me. But I mean, you guys could create a community right here and to go through, you already have
We
that,
should,
you already
yes,
have.
absolutely.
And so there are other market centers that have gone before us in this too, who have 2 or 3 years worth of monthly meetings that we could get around the table and discuss. Here's the thing, you don't have to be an expert in the thing that's the topic of the month to host the thing that's the topic of the month. Just bringing people in, grab a couple of resources, find a trusted professional in the industry that's vetted, like wonderful vendor partners are. And then bring those people around, be the straw that stirs the drink. Who knows Jerry Robertson in here? my great friend Jerry Robertson always says he wants to be the straw that stirs the drink. For this wealth building conversation, you don't have to be the expert. You can just be the straw that stirs the drink. You know, be an active member of the KWNG Wealth Club. You know, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just has to be purposeful. I shared that triangle from David from Factum Financial. They have an entire curriculum also. It's wonderful. And we're gonna be putting our kids through some of this information that I've gone through with them so that because we want to teach our kids, but I want also to utilize resources that are designed for it in my efforts to teach our kids and the people that we care about this information. You don't have to create everything or be the master of all this stuff. You just have to get into it. So financial education, you have to seek it out. It will not seek you out. The most that this conversation is going to seek you out is you showed up here to team meeting today, and I'm telling you about it. You will leave here and it will not at all hit your radar for years. Unless you come hear me again, because I told you for the next 15 years, this is going to be my thing. But you just, you have to go find it. You have to be intentional. And I encourage you to be intentional and set some goals around this. Okay, so financial awareness is the next piece.
One comment, we have a wealth group meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m.
This is so timely.
Be here,
This room needs to be full.
be here.
What is the topic?
Well, it's changed now.
Okay, I like it.
We were gonna do P and L, but now I like where we're going with this. So I think we're gonna start with a foundation of a little bit of education. I mean, we've done that. I mean, I think that the people in the class have really felt like it has benefited them. But I like what we're doing here, so I'm gonna use a lot of these notes.
So let's just get more and more people in the conversation and continue to build structure around it. I love it. I appreciate you, Bob, leading that. I love you for it and thank you very much. And so continue to be the straw that stirs the drink. Financial awareness. There are a few things that you need to be financially aware of. You just, like, unless you can't know where you're going unless you know where you are, and you have to know what your number is. So these are the things. What is your net worth? What are your monthly personal expenses? Now, you need to have a business P&L, but I'm speaking more here about personal expenses. I don't know about you guys, like we have, Nikki and I run several businesses, and we have the most like tight profit and loss and budgets on the businesses that we run. But then it's like, the person will be okay. Well, no, then we had to get into our personal and actually begin to track expenses to make sure that we knew what numbers and to what dials to turn. You have to know your net worth. I love this quote from Gary Keller. Everybody wants to talk wealth building. It's sexy. But here, Gary says, if you're not tracking your net worth, you're not even in the game. You're not even in the game if you're not willing to do a net worth statement. A net worth statement is so easy. It's just literally, what are your total assets minus your total liabilities equals your net worth. It's super, super simple. It's not a complicated thing. And I encourage you, we were challenged to start tracking our net worth a number of years ago. And when we did it the first time, it was very depressing because it was a negative number. That's reality. Like, it was negative net worth. And so then we had the reality though, we know where we are now. And here's where we want to go next. And this is a plan that we can get there. We had to put in place some strategic habits to begin to pursue getting a positive net worth, not necessarily a millions and millions and millions of dollars of net worth. It was just get positive.
Is that liquid, or is that, say, assets, or what your home could be worth?
This is every asset that you own, the value of the asset, and then minus any liability. So your question was, does it have to be liquid? Some assets are very liquid, cash in your bank account. Some are illiquid, like if you have invested in a syndication, or just say your house, like your house, you could sell your house. I don't know if you've heard lately, but the days on market has creeped up just a little bit and there's a high cancellation rate. So it may take you, like, it's not, you just can't go cash a check for your house today and go, so it's not totally liquid. So total assets are all assets, minus any liabilities that you have. Loans against those assets, credit cards, what you owe the IRS that you have not yet paid them, like, all of those types of things are liabilities. So total assets minus liabilities equal your net worth. And it's just a simple exercise. And then you have clarity, you know where you are. And then and this is a little example of like your home is an asset and then mortgage and then, and it gives you your total net worth. So then you have to track your spending. I hate this part. I just hate tracking our personal expenses. It sucks. I mean, I was the bounce the check on the registry. Is that what that thing's called? The registry? But way back then when you had to write the little
Yeah,
book.
check register.
Yeah, so I bounced several checks early in our marriage and that, I was not good. But then Quicken came along. And then there's Mint that then went away. And then there's no excuse. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to tell you, there's no excuse to not track your personal expenses. Because you can connect to any one of these super cool programs like subscription things, very affordable. You connect your bank accounts and it automatically pulls all of the transactions in. It's going to suggest categories for all of the transactions. You go through and say, no, that's not this, it's that. No, that's not this, it's that. You want to know what I recently found out? Okay, so for a long time tracking expenses, the number one expense we had when we were tracking it in Quicken, the number one expense we had was Walmart. How do you categorize Walmart?
You do groceries, home goods, office supplies.
You have to split the transaction manually, and then you have to look at a stupid receipt. And you have to say, okay, deodorant, bread, whatever, You had to split the transaction manually in Quicken so that you could properly account for the different categories. You know what Monarch does? Because that's the one that I chose to use, and I'm not endorsing them by any stretch because it was a little bit of a pain in the butt because my bank kept disconnecting. But you know what they do? They connect to Amazon.
Oh, man.
What? Look at Amazon, and they automatically split your Amazon receipts because Amazon is by far the biggest vendor that we use in our household. By far, the number one payee in our household is Amazon for personal expenses. And it splits the transaction into categories.
Which one is it?
Monarch.
Monarch?
I think they probably don't have like a corner, they probably don't have a corner on the market on that. So I'm not telling you the other ones can't.
No,
do
no,
that.
but they.
But I'm just telling you, I was amazed. I came out of the office like a kid in a candy store. You're not gonna believe this.
It doesn't depend on your grandbabies, what you put on your home.
You go in there and say that was a gift. Boom. You get, so, all right.
He does shop. I just want to say, for all of you that question their face. Okay,
I
said,
want to see the picture.
that is the truth, by the way. That's not just my.
Is that the truth or is that your truth?
I haven't seen any of those photos.
She's like.
I see a lot of yours.
I don't know. Sure they went once, Dan.
Okay, we got a lot of stuff to go. I'm gonna be over and I gotta keep going. So look, you gotta track your expenses. The last thing is you gotta determine your freedom number. And so determine your freedom number. Do you know what you're shooting for? So do you know where you are? Do you know how much you're spending every month on your lifestyle? And then do you know where you need to go? Like, where are you trying to get to? What is your freedom number? What number do you have to build to where you can experience that freedom that we talked about? Super simple calculation. Super simple calculation is just if you take this, your personal expenses, your annual personal expenses, and you multiply it by 25. Multiply it by 25. So if your annual expenses in your household is $100,000, then you're building to a $2.5 million freedom number or net worth in cash flow producing assets. Again, just like Bob said, please do not let any of this, like be an overwhelming or confusing. It's just one step at a time. One step at a time. Savings, you gotta have savings. You've got to have your, you gotta know where you are, and then you've got to have I'm sorry. You have to have education, and then awareness, and then a good efficient saving strategy. And so determine your number, know where you are, know what your spending is, and know where you want to be. And this is your financial awareness. Last thing, saving strategies, effective, efficient saving strategies. This is right out of Brett Tanner's strategy for savings, which is have first an operating reserve, which is 30 days of your personal expenses in a reserve account. 30 days of personal expenses. The next thing is an emergency reserve, which 3 to 6 months, 6 months preferably, especially in the business that you're in, 3 to 6 months of personal reserves, and that's your emergency fund. And then once you have those two funded, you can begin to put into an opportunity fund where you're going to invest from. And so you have to have savings habits. This is a saving habit. When Nikki and I said, okay, we give 10%, now we're going to save 10%, that we began a habit that we have maintained all except for when we were in the red every month throughout the Great Recession. And so this is the habit. And then the next piece is to make it efficient. And so this is again like a lot of things on here, but the only thing that I want to start with in this conversation, as we go through this process together, you'll see this a lot. But the thing I want to show right now is that a lot of people, when they're saving, they have money in a dead money account. Dead money is in a savings account, in your mattress, somewhere where the money is not growing faster than inflation. And so when your money is not growing faster than inflation, then you are not keeping up with inflation. And what happens is your purchasing power with the money you're saving is just slowly eroding. Because a year from now, the dollar won't buy as much as it buys today. And so you have to put your money somewhere where it's safe, not dead. And you need to have an efficient savings strategy for these places where you're keeping this money. Yes, sir.
Jason, I just wanted to point out, so from a positive perspective, once you begin this process, there's a rule called the rule of sevens. So after 7 years, your money should double. So as you begin today, 7 years from now, theoretically, if you're doing these types of things, you should have twice as much in terms of an investment process. So every 7 years, if you're doubling your money, 21 years from now, you should have 3 times as much.
Habit.
Compound
Habit.
growth.
Compound interest, there's a calculation also where, we'll get into it, but there's a calculation depending on interest rate as to how quickly it doubles. So yes, efficient savings. All right, here we are, Wealth Foundation. This is where we've landed. You already know, I'm gonna finish up. You know how to earn. You know how to earn money. We're gonna continue to teach you how to earn money. Now it's time to learn how to keep it, how to multiply it, how to protect it, and make sure that your financial security at some point does not rely just on the next deal that you're doing, because at some point you're going to want to do less deals, have a walk-away deal, not trade your time for money. It's not just about wealth, it literally is about freedom and legacy, doing more with what you already have, and then learning more and implementing the next strategy. We're just gonna build on and layer in this conversation. So again, not a sexy conversation. I appreciate y'all hearing from me today. This is very important. We're gonna continue in this, and we're gonna have the wealth groups. We're gonna dig into this. I want to have a community around this. We're going to build financial education, awareness, and good financial habits in this group. because I don't want you just to be a productive agent. I want you to have freedom in your world. I want you pursuing more than a GCI number. So, all right, thanks for giving me an extra 5.